We talked about housekeeping and clutter underneath desks. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Not sure how comfortable you can be when you have all that stuff under there. Slips, trips, and fall hazards, potential fire hazards, past harborage, you know, because we don't have any of those around, but past harborage. I know in the Monroe building, we have nice hissing, big brown cockroaches that are big. They eat well. So think about those things. These are things that you can look at if you're going around as somebody responsible for safety, just looking for some quick fixes, safety hazards. This is the kind of stuff we'd focus in if we came in. We'd look at that kind of stuff for a variety of reasons. Okay? Equipment and training. We all use a variety of different equipment. Are you trained on the equipment before you use it? That's the important piece. Whether it's a copier, nothing's worse than getting a brand new copier and not how to use the thing, and then you get frustrated because you can't even figure out how to make a single copy. Shredders, I don't know how big of, if you have industrial shredders where you're at. Some of your staff might use medical devices. Hopefully they're being trained on those medical devices. They're doing annual competencies. We've got it documented, so if somebody were to ask us to produce that documentation, we'd have it. We've got to inspect our equipment. We've got to make sure that it's in good working order. It might be old, might be a little bit outdated, but if it's still in good working condition, we've got to be inspecting it, and somebody's got to be responsible for that. And if it's not documented, we didn't do it. That's how it is. Now remember, the Virginia Department of Occupational Safety and Health, which is under the Department of Labor and Industry, or what we call VOSH or VOSHA, they can come in anytime and do an inspection. Okay? There are some emphasis programs going on. One of them is record keeping and the OSHA logs. And I know that's going to be talked about a little bit later. VOSH also has access to the first report of injury that's reported. So when you have an employee that has a workers' comp claim, not only does it come to workers' comp, but there's a whole process with the Workers' Comp Commission where the Department of Labor and Industry has access to that. And I'm seeing more and more inspections through VOSH with state agencies being pulled that way. For example, there was a state agency where the agency said the person was electrocuted, and that triggered an inspection. They pulled that. Well, the employee wasn't electrocuted. They were shocked. Electrocuted means you're no longer with us, but they were shocked, which still brought up a whole bunch of issues about lockout, tagout, and making sure that before you work on any type of electrical equipment, there's no power going to it. So be aware of that. Depending on what types of injuries you might see, they could come out. If it's a bad enough injury, we may come out and do an investigation. I know we've done a lot of, I shouldn't say a lot, we've done a few investigations at various locations with VDH where there's been like roofing operations, and there's been multiple complaints, and they had to evacuate the building because of the vapors and stuff coming off of it. So you may see us, if, knock on wood, it doesn't happen, if there's a fatality, we do come out and investigate those as well. Or if it's a horrific enough injury, 3 or more people, you may see us, the director will assign us to come out to do that kind of stuff. And we will ask you for training records, and we will ask you for inspection data. So that's why I'm bringing it up. It's one of those things you got to make sure you've got. All right, so let's talk a little bit about best practices in shredders, okay? We like to wear nice ties in the office, and we like to wear nice jewelry and scarves and all that kind of stuff. And depending on the type of shredder you might have, if it's one of those nice big industrial that do 40 or 50 pages at a time, not just your little desktop model, you could potentially get sucked into that shredder and be choked. And when that happens to you, and it does occasionally because we see some claims, it's important to know where the stop button is or the on-off button, okay? Because in that moment of panic, when you think you are being sucked into the machine, you need to kind of remember where the on-off button is. And then it's funny, but it's not funny at the same time. It does happen, okay? Other things that we all are guilty of this too, people like to, it says 10 pages, but I got 12 here, so I'm going to go ahead and put 12 pages in the shredder instead of 10, and then it jams up. And then if you're like me, you're trying to pull it out, so you rip the page, the pages rip, and then it's kind of left in there. So then you start picking at it to try to get it out, to get the jam to release. But in the meantime, you forget to turn off the shredder or unplug it, so you don't get shocked, or once the jam is released, it doesn't suck your finger, your letter opener, your scissors, or whatever you're trying, screwdriver, whatever you're trying to dig the jam out with into the machine, okay? Usually it's our fingers, they get pinched, and we don't ever do it again because we learned the first time. So think about that with shredders. They're dangerous pieces of equipment. Make sure you understand how they operate. Some you can shred staples in, some you can't. Paper clips, some you can, some you can't. So know your shredder. If you happen upon a shredder that's jammed or broken and it's not working, put a sign on it or something so that everybody knows it's out of service. Now, have you ever walked up to a piece of machinery and you get that warm tingling sensation and the hair on your arm stands up? That usually means there's a short somewhere in the piece of equipment, and you could have the potential to get shocked. So, or you feel this funny vibration coming off of it, or it smells really hot, you probably need to shut it off, unplug it, put a sign on it, and call somebody to come look at it, because there's a short, there's something going on with that piece of machinery. All right. Lots of other things that we forget about on a day-to-day basis. How many people got those guillotine paper cutters? Yeah. It's got that big arm on it, and you use them in, well, I used them in elementary school. I don't know if everybody else used them in elementary school, but that's what we had in elementary school. They were the big paper, it's a guillotine, that's what I call it. There are some things you need to think, those should always be in the down position. I look for that. It's a crazy little thing, but we've had people's fingers cut off, we've had fingertips cut off on these. It's a hand tool, but you still can get your fingers cut off. It should automatically come down. There should be a spring on the back of that, so if your paper cutter stays up, then it's probably broken. You need to pull it down, and there should be a little lock to lock it in place. If for some reason your paper cutter's broken, you can't get it fixed or you can't get it replaced, you can actually buy a guard for it so your finger can't get cut. It's a big plastic shield that you can buy for it. So there are some things, if you really like that paper cutter and it's got sentimental value and you're attached to it, we can kind of save it. The other thing is box cutters. Do you guys use box cutters? Opening reams of paper, cartons of paper, boxes of paper. Those things are dangerous. They'll cut you when you least expect it. Or if it's the type you have to break the blade off to get to the new blade or change the blade, think about that. Think about your letter openers. Hopefully you're not, remember everything you learned in kindergarten serves you for the rest of your life. Always walk with the points of the letter opener and the scissors pointed to the ground, not up in the air. So if you fall, you get impaled by it or fall on it. Be careful with letter openers. From a workplace violence perspective, we've had some situations in the Commonwealth where two employees had a little verbal disagreement. One person happened to have a letter opener. Can you put me on picture so that I can see it? Okay, so they had their little letter opener. Can I see your pen for a second? We'll pretend that this pen is the letter opener. They got into a little heated discussion, a little meeting of the mind, so to speak, and the person with the letter opener that was opening the letter at her desk, it's all perception, said, well, I'm just sick and tired of you. And they pointed the letter opener at somebody, and the other person perceived it as a threat. And I don't know, you know, then it probably escalated. I don't know. I wasn't there. But it was a workplace violence incident, and several parties were involved, and disciplinary action happened. But just think about it. I know I'm guilty of that kind of stuff because I'm a hand talker. So it's little stuff like that from a safety perspective that you have to think about.